great-grandmother, Mary Esther, was a kind woman, one whose presence arrived before she did. She was raised in Brewton, Alabama, sometime in the 1940s, and she walked around as if she had inherited something that was worth protecting. Every Sunday, she would crown her curly hair with this really big hat that was very bright, sometimes yellow, sometimes green, sometimes fuchsia. She didn't need to do any talking because her hat spoke for her. She wasn't loud, but her silence, it took shape, and people around her knew how to read it. In her early 30s, the summer of 1965, that summer it came in thick, it came in heavy. Brewton wasn't any headlines. However, that didn't stop the headlines from rolling in, from dogs and hoses being turned on children in Birmingham, or the bloody Sunday march in Selma. Everyone could feel the pressure coming in on town. A few towns over, you had colored students taken to the streets to march. You had the schools in Brewton whispering the silent ones, the secret meetings behind closed doors. Mary Esther's husband, he was a janitor. He was a deacon, and he worked in these very schools, the same ones his son attended. He was the deacon at the church, a man of few words. After one school board meeting, he came home with his jaw clenched and his fist balled, and he just said, "They told me to do my job. They told me to not stir up anything." He didn't say much after that, but he didn't need to. But his son Elijah, he did. Elijah was a 17-year-old boy, all rough around the edges and full of questions. He was tired of the secondhand textbooks. He saw the white schools down the road. He knew that they had new maps. He saw their clean uniforms, and he just started to ask himself, why? Why did the silence feel like obedience? Why did everyone act like things couldn't change? He wasn't angry. He was just awake. He was very aware of the situation that he found himself in this small town, Brewton, Alabama. And the fact that he had realized that very fact, it scared Mary Esther more than anything. Then came a night that Elijah, he didn't come home. The house, it grew still. Nobody screamed, nobody ran. But Mary Esther, she sat down in the parlor, hands folded in her lap. She was holding, as if she was holding the family together. There were whispers in the kitchen. Arrested, beaten, worse. Without a word, she rose. She moved through the kitchen. She lifted the rug and opened the trapdoor into the root cellar. Now, I imagine she had gone down there to try to distract herself. Maybe she was going to start a pot of something. Maybe cooking was her healing. Maybe cooking was her distraction. Maybe, just maybe, she would intend to find what she was looking for. And then all of a sudden, there it was, the old biscuit tin. It sat behind the row of mason jars, scratched, dented, wrapped once in twine, like even this container had something to hide. Inside were fragments of life that had lived just as loudly in private as any march in the streets. There were yellow voter registration cards, newspaper clippings, a letter from her cousin who had helped organize carpools during the Montgomery boycott. bus boycott and a revival program from 1950s with words that read, "Don't let your faith sit down," scribbled in the margins. But it wasn't the items themselves, it was what they meant. She brought them upstairs. She laid them on the kitchen table as if she was laying communion. Then she called out to the other children. No tears, no hysteria. Just a steady breath and a firm voice, as if she began to read names that they didn't know their stories. They hadn't been taught. Clara, Jordan, Bessie, May, Nathaniel. They marched, they cooked, they prayed, they resisted quietly. People who took risks without asking for any credit. People who served meals to strangers, planning sit-downs. Women who stitched signs in the back of the church while keeping the cornbread from burning. Mary Esther wasn't just sharing history. She was passing down armor. The armor that would protect them, the armor that would prepare them. She was preparing her offspring. She was showing them how culture, memory, a quiet resistance had always walked hand in hand in their family, in their culture, in their lives. That there was strength and dignity, power and patience, a strategy and silence. Then at dawn, Elijah returned. He came into the house, his shirt torn, a bruise darkened on his jaw. He didn't have anything to say. He came in quietly, and when he saw the 10 on the table, he looked at his mother, and she didn't look back. And he gave her, and she looked back, and he gave her a nod. He didn't give an apology, but it was a nod of understanding. The next morning, Mary Esther, she swept the floor. She fed the chickens. She made breakfast just like she always did. But the children, they sat at that table differently from that day forward. More upright, more aware that tin can, it went back into the root cellar that afternoon. She didn't speak of it ever again. They say Mary Esther never opened that tin can again. That after that summer, she would never move it. She would never open it. That it would stay right there in that cellar where it had always been, waiting for the next one who would need to remember where they came from.